Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the LSU Insider Podcast post-game show here after LSU's 66-56 loss to the South Carolina Gamecocks in women's basketball. I'm Zach Ewing. I am a deputy sports editor at The Advocate, and I'm going to hang out with you for about 10, 12 minutes here before we hopefully will get a visit from our women's basketball LSU beat writer Reed Darcy, who is out at Colonial Life Arena in Columbia, South Carolina. He's going to join us live from the arena and give us his thoughts, and also let us know what Kim Mulkey and some of the LSU Tigers said after this one. A 66-56 South Carolina victory. Hard-fought game. You know, it was a 3-point game at the half. South Carolina kind of pulled away. I think they led by as many as 13 in the second half, 12 or 13. And then, kind of LSU gets it back within 8 and has a chance to pull within – actually, I think they got it within 7, had a chance to pull within 4 or 5 in the last couple of minutes and couldn't do it, and South Carolina ends up winning by 10. So we will be with you for the next 30 minutes or so here talking through this one. Do want to let you know that the LSU Sports Insider is brought to you by Waste Pro. Tiger fans, if you're planning a tailgate or event, keep your guests comfortable with portable toilets from Waste Pro. Call 225-744-6400 and mention the LSU Sports Insider for a special offer. Also can show your comments and questions live on the air. Titus, first comment, I knew we were going to get this one, says refs. I don't know. I know that everybody wants to blame the refs. It's a 10-point game. You're not going to get a lot of calls in an arena with 18,000 screaming fans, and South Carolina does play a physical brand of basketball, and yeah, they probably get away with some stuff. I agree with that. I don't know that I think it was the difference in the game. Titus' second comment, poor shooting. I think that was one of the differences in the game. It was an ugly offensive game for LSU. They shot only 29% from the floor. Had so many shots just kind of rim out that could have been buckets, and they just couldn't get them to fall. Although I will say the Gamecocks had some of those too, where you thought the ball was going down, and somehow those rims were real tight at Colonial Life Arena tonight. I'll also say this is the undercard, right? These two teams expect to meet again in the SEC tournament in Greenville, South Carolina in early March. And then they may see each other again in the NCAA tournament in late March or even at the Final Four in April. So this was the undercard. This is something I really want to ask Reed when he gets on later. This was one where I think LSU needed to prove. LSU had not played a very difficult schedule. They're 20-0 coming into this game, 20-1 now. They had not played a very difficult schedule. Only a couple of ranked teams, probably a 2-point win at Tennessee was their toughest game. Meanwhile, South Carolina has lost to UCLA, but they're also just waxing teams left and right. They've killed both Texas and Oklahoma, who are the other two top teams in the SEC. So I think just by hanging around and playing tough on the road, LSU kind of sent notice to South Carolina and said, hey, you are not going to have an easy game against us. We're going to give you a game in your home arena, and certainly in March or April when we play again, we're going to give you an even better game in a neutral arena. So, 66-56, the final of this one. Reed is going to be along in about 10 minutes. I am going to take a quick break here and get those out of the way before Reed joins us, because he does need to get writing after a little while. So we're just going to do a quick break now and probably take another one before he joins too. But we will be back in 60 seconds on the LSU Sports Insider.
Experience the convenience and cleanliness that Waste Pro brings to Mardi Gras, LSU tailgates, and festivals with our top-notch portable toilet services. Perfect for large crowds and community events. Join the countless satisfied families and organizers who trust Waste Pro to keep their gatherings spotless and sanitary. Discover more about our services and make your next event a success at wasteprousa.com.
Welcome back to the LSU Sports Insider postgame show. I'm Zach Ewing, joining you here before we get a visit from Reed Darcy live in Columbia, South Carolina. Do want to let you know that our show is brought to you by Classic Industrial Services, proudly serving Louisiana and the entire United States from large capital projects. From large capital projects to commercial projects or your smaller quick response needs, Classic Industrial is your go-to for quality and safety. They're not just about business, they're a proud community partner supporting local initiatives and helping build a stronger Baton Rouge. Because at Classic Industrial Services, every minute matters. So dissecting this one, South Carolina, number 2 in the country. They beat number 5, LSU, 66-56. Virgil's comment, Carolina played their C game and won a little bit. I certainly think in the first half they had their C game. I think we saw better than that in the second half. Again, we'll talk to Reed about this, but there were really some key moments here. One of them, to me, probably the key stretch in the entire game was in the third quarter, and Carolina was starting to play better. LSU had scored a basket right out of halftime that cut the lead to 1. Then South Carolina stretches it back out to 5. They've got the crowd in it, but LSU's still in the game. It's a 5-point game about midway through the third quarter, maybe not quite midway through the third quarter. And LSU's got the ball, and the crowd's getting into it. And they get the ball stolen. South Carolina goes down and gets a Raven Johnson layup. Boom, 7-point game. LSU gets lazy with the inbound pass, and it gets stolen by Raven Johnson, and she gets an immediate second layup. 5-point game to 9-point game in the matter of 4 seconds. And at that point, you were just kind of like, man, that's going to be tough to overcome. And sure enough, LSU did get it, as I said earlier, to within 7, but never closer than that in the fourth quarter. So, Reed and I talked about this on Monday's LSU Insider. This has been the one box Kim Mulkey has not been able to check in Baton Rouge. I guess combining this kind of alongside it is winning an SEC title, right? If you're going to win an SEC title, you're going to have to beat South Carolina. She hasn't beat South Carolina yet. In fact, LSU, as you see on the screen here, has lost 17 in a row to South Carolina. That goes all the way back to 2012. And they just can't seem to get over the hump. This is the 5th time Kim Mulkey's Tigers have played South Carolina. They're 0-5. This was only the second one that was a double-digit game. The other one was actually the other road game. It was at South Carolina 2 years ago. LSU lost by 24 and then goes on to win the national title 6 weeks later. So does it mean everything's over for LSU? No, it doesn't. They can still get that done. But obviously you'd still like to get that monkey off your back, so to speak. And we'll see how LSU responds to this. They play Texas A&M on Sunday. That's not an easy game with a short turnaround, by the way. And then they have to go and play Oklahoma. I think that's a home game next week. So it's going to be a tough stretch for LSU, and I wouldn't be surprised if they drop another game or two here in the next couple of weeks. But I do think that they showed they can compete with possibly the best team in the country. I also think that as we kind of look at some keys of the game here, that they've got to figure out half-court offense. They scored 22 points in the first quarter. They were hot with their jump shooting, and they were able to turn South Carolina over, get out running, and get some easy buckets that way. 22 points in the first quarter, fantastic. South Carolina does not give up 22 points in a quarter very often. After that point, LSU had only 21 points over the next almost 25 minutes of game action. They did not get to their next 22 points to get to 44. I actually got to 45 on a basket with 5:12 remaining in the fourth quarter in the game. So it took them almost the rest of the game to get the same number of points they had in that first quarter. So not great from that perspective. Again, had a lot of kind of layups and stuff like that bounce out. You hate to say that it was all bad luck or anything. A lot of that is the way South Carolina defended you. South Carolina, I think, had 12 blocks in the game. So you have to give South Carolina a ton of credit as far as that goes. But LSU, 11 blocks. They had 11 blocks. But they also forced 17 turnovers. LSU shot only 29.9% from the field. I will say, I know a lot of you were complaining about the refs. LSU only shot 9 free throws. South Carolina shot 26. And while some of that was end of game, LSU's trying to get more aggressive, and they have to send South Carolina to the free throw line in the last couple of minutes. In that physical of a game, I think Kim Mulkey's probably saying, man, that 9 free throws, what if that was 17? What if that was 19? What if we get 3 or 4 or 5 more trips to the line? And, then instead of being down 7 late, we're down, I don't know, 1 or 2 late. Maybe we take the lead. Maybe we at least put a scare into this team, and they weren't given the opportunity to do that. I thought this is a pretty good point from Dre. Mulkey let players get tired, but that's what South Carolina does, Dre. South Carolina has the deepest bench in the country. They've got like 9 players who average 5 or more points a game and average, I think, like 12 or more minutes a game. I mean, like, that's what they do. But having said that, LSU really struggled with its bench today. Kaylin Gilbert, who's gone kind of cold lately, they only had 29 minutes on their bench combined. Half of those, 15 of those, were Kaylin Gilbert. She was 1 of 7 from the floor. She was the only bench player to score. LSU had 2 bench points, 2. South Carolina had 31 bench points. They had 14 from Joyce Edwards. They had 9 from Tessa Johnson. They had 8 from Malaysia Fulwiley. So 31-2 in bench points. Now, you're not going to outscore South Carolina in bench scoring. That's not what LSU wants to do. That's not what they're going to do. It would take a really weird game for that to happen. So I'm not saying they have to outscore them, but it can't be 31-2. It can be like 27-11 or something, and then maybe you have a chance in this game. But yeah, you can't. You can't do that. So do want to let you know that this episode of the LSU Sports Insider is brought to you by Associated Grocers. Tigers fans, Associated Grocers is hiring. Join a team committed to the success of independent retail grocers. Apply today at Associated Grocers and be part of something great. We are going to take our second break, just get both breaks out of the way here before Reed joins us. Reed Darcy joining us live from Columbia, South Carolina, after the LSU women's basketball team loses 66-56 to number 2 South Carolina. So we'll take our second break, and we're expecting Reed pretty shortly after that, so stay tuned.
Experience the convenience and cleanliness that Waste Pro brings to Mardi Gras, LSU tailgates, and festivals with our top-notch portable toilet services. Perfect for large crowds and community events. Join the countless satisfied families and organizers who trust Waste Pro to keep their gatherings spotless and sanitary. Discover more about our services and make your next event a success at wasteprousa.com.
You know how far I've gone, now I'm home again. I'm feeling more alive these days than I've ever been.
At the Baton Rouge Clinic, our sole focus is to provide exceptional health care for your entire family so that you can get back to doing what you love most. We are caring for generations.
You give me love.
Since 1988, Classic Industrial Services, Inc. has led the industry in specialty contracting. From thermal insulation to scaffolding, coatings, and beyond, we cover it all. Every minute matters in our commitment to quality and safety. We're here to serve with roofing, siding, heat trace, and refractory services. Visit ClassicIndustrial.com for more information.
Okay, welcome back to the LSU Sports Insider postgame show. South Carolina defeats LSU 66-56. Reed just texted me he is on his way to his laptop, so we're going to get him here in just a minute from Columbia, South Carolina. I do want to add that this show is brought to you by the Baton Rouge Clinic, your trusted healthcare provider in the heart of Baton Rouge. Whether you're in need of primary care, specialist services, or urgent care, the Baton Rouge Clinic has you covered with a team of dedicated and experienced professionals. Visit BatonRougeClinic.com to learn more or to schedule your appointment today. The Baton Rouge Clinic, caring for generations. So we continue to go through things here. LSU's leading scorer in this game was Anissa Morrow. She had 15 points and 16 rebounds, another double-double. She's had one in now 20 of 21 LSU games. The only one she didn't was one of those cupcake games early in the season. Can't remember who it was against, but she only played like 15 minutes, didn't have a double-double in that game. But she had 15 points, 16 rebounds. She did struggle from the floor, just like every LSU player did, outside of maybe Samaya Smith, who is 3 of 6. Anissa Morrow was 6 of 19 from the floor. Flo J. Johnson had 13 points. She was 6 of 18 from the floor. Michaela Williams had 13 points. She was 5 of 17 from the floor. Williams and Johnson had combined 2 of 9 from three-point range. Team was 3 of 14. So it just not enough shot making. And I do think, and another comment here from Dre, did well for most of the game, just didn't have enough. And yeah, you start to think about what an upset of South Carolina looks like for LSU. And I think, number one, LSU's got to force some turnovers. I do think we saw some ingredients of it tonight, right? Especially in the first half. South Carolina had 12 turnovers tonight. LSU had 17. Make that even. Make that 15 and 15, right? Then you need South Carolina to miss some shots, what they did, but you've got to make some shots, and that's what LSU did not do. So to talk about this more, joining us live from Columbia, South Carolina, we've got Reed Darcy, our LSU women's basketball beat writer for The Advocate. And Reed, I think you're on mute, but yeah, there we are. You just finished talking to Kim Mulkey and her players. What is the overall kind of feeling coming out of it?
I think the overall feeling is that Kim Mulkey, really wants to keep this loss in perspective. I think she talked a lot about how it's just one regular season game, and what really matters is that LSU is competing for a championship in March, right? And that is playing their best basketball once the tournament starts. She said, we asked her, we were like, hey, how do you get over the hump versus South Carolina? Because LSU hasn't beaten South Carolina since 2012, and it's now 0-5 against South Carolina since Mulkey took over. And she said, it just comes down to, national championships. That's what she really matters. That's what she really values. That's what really matters to her. It matters less so about regular season games in January. But Zach, I don't know if you touched on this. It sort of, I have to imagine, it has to be kind of frustrating that they just can't they can't get over the hump versus this team. Every game aside from the one in 2023 sort of follows kind of the same script. It's tough, it's physical, it's defensive oriented, and South Carolina always just has a little extra juice for them, and they can never pull off a win. So finding themselves in familiar position again, we'll see if they meet up again in the SEC tournament or the NCAA tournament. I think that will be, just as interesting, just as fun. The crowd was rocking tonight, but yeah, I don't think Kim Mulkey or anyone in LSU is shaken up by this at all. I think they'll be just all right.
Yeah, I think frustrating is the right word, right? Like, sure, you'd like to win. No, nobody likes to lose, and nobody likes to lose to the same team over and over again. But does this ruin their season? No. In fact, we'll talk about this a little bit later in our last segment. But I actually kind of think I come away from this a little more encouraged that LSU played with this team, really for all 4 quarters. You could say it was decided the last 5 minutes or so, but I mean, this was not a blowout like South Carolina blew out Texas and Oklahoma already in SEC play. I think LSU played with them. You do mention the offense, Reed. LSU had 22 points in the first quarter. It took them 25 minutes to score 22 more points. And the shot making is just not there. The turnovers, South Carolina's going to force some turnovers. But I talked about that stretch in the third quarter where you just, you can't throw the inbounds pass away in that scenario and make, turn what was a 3-point game just a minute before is all of a sudden a 9-point game, and you're almost giving it to them. It's those moments where if LSU wants to eventually spring this upset, they've got to play cleaner in those moments.
Yes. Across the second, third, and fourth quarters, LSU shot 13 of 57 from the field. That's after going 10 of 20 in the first quarter. And so over those last 3 quarters, LSU had as many field goal makes as they did turnovers. 13 field goal makes, 13 turnovers. That's not a recipe to win, especially against a team like South Carolina. It's almost kind of impressive that the game was as close as it was for as long as it was, because LSU, I think they rebounded the ball well. They played good defense. They made life tough for South Carolina on offense. But South Carolina was just too long and physical and too good at defending the rim to really give LSU any kind of space to get easy offense. Everything really looked difficult tonight. And it's really tough. We should mention, Zach, it's really tough to win in this building. Nobody wins in this building ever.
69 right? In a row. Is that what the number is now?
69. I think if you include tournament games, it's 69. But just regular season games, they've won 64 straight games, regular season games in this building, and they've now also won 54 straight regular season SEC games. So that's home and the road. It's just an unbelievable stretch of play there where they just dominate. LSU, no team, I don't care who you are, I don't care who you're coached by, no team is supposed to come in this building and win. It hasn't happened in a very long time. I believe it hasn't happened since December 2020. What were you doing December 2020? It feels like a lifetime ago, right? So that just goes.
Well, there were no fans there probably too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It just goes to show you how long it's been since South Carolina's lost in this building.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Brandon's talking, they did lose at UCLA, but we're talking conference games, 54 straight SEC games that South Carolina has won. So, and that's their only loss in any game now for about, 60, 70 games or something. You're going back to the Final Four 2 years ago.
I might be getting this wrong, so don't quote me. 2 regular season losses in the last 4 years. Overall, 4 losses total, I believe, in the last 4 years, if you include postseason losses. So, yeah, pretty impressive.
Because it's Kim Mulkey and because a lot of fans are in the comments here talking about the foul discrepancy, and South Carolina shot 26 free throws to LSU's 9. Did Kim Mulkey hint at any displeasure with the refereeing in this one, or did you see? I thought it was a physical game. I mean, here and there's a call. I really didn't think that was the difference personally, but did Kim Mulkey say anything?
No, she didn't. She was more upset about the turnovers. I think that was the first thing she said when she was asked why they lost. She said, 17 turnovers. It's tough to overcome those, especially the ones that came at inopportune times, like the one you mentioned, Zach, the one in the third quarter where South Carolina stole the inbounds pass, and it was a 6-0 run, got the crowd back into it, and then LSU called a timeout. It was those kinds of things that she pointed to as the reason why LSU lost. 17 turnovers overall, again, 13 across the last 3 quarters, and South Carolina capitalized with 22 points off of those 17 turnovers. So I think for a South Carolina team that didn't really shoot the ball well, struggled to score, struggled to rebound, that sort of easy offense they could get off LSU's turnovers was pretty big in terms of helping them get a pretty decisive win here.
Yeah, I do want to highlight a couple of positive things for LSU because I think it's easy to be frustrated, and of course when you lose one game out of 21, you're going to focus on the one. But I mentioned Anissa Morrow, another double-double. She had 16 rebounds. LSU played really good defense in this game. I thought they forced 12 turnovers of their own. They held South Carolina to 37% shooting. Carolina was 2 of 13 from 3. Now, some of that, they did miss some open threes. They had some balls bounce out. But like South Carolina's point total, 66 points, is their second lowest of the season. The only time they were held to fewer points was that loss at UCLA. This is a team that averages better than 81 points per game this year. They averaged better than 84 points per game last year. I do think there was a little bit of South Carolina was a beat off offensively, but I think you also give a lot of credit to LSU's defense in this
one. Yeah, for sure. And look at the rebounding as well. LSU out-rebounded South Carolina 51-39. That's pretty impressive right there. Usually when LSU forces a team to shoot less than 40% from the field, they usually win. So this was a bit of an anomaly here. I think LSU, they shot 30% overall. I confirm that. That's the lowest in a game, the worst they've ever shot in a game under Kim Mulkey. They've never shot below 32%, I believe. So that's the lowest they've ever been under Kim Mulkey. It's also the 5th time they've scored 60 or fewer points under Kim Mulkey, and it's the 2nd time they've done that against South Carolina. I believe they are now 3-2 in those types of games. So, if you're looking for a silver lining, defensively, which has been kind of a weak point at times this season, defensively they played about as well as they could. It was just the offense that they couldn't find anything easy, anything consistent, anything efficient. It was a very difficult night offensively.
Yeah, it was a bit of a wild first quarter. It finished 22-21 LSU. Teams were going up and down the floor. They're making shots. It looked like there was no fouls called for the first 8.5 minutes of the game. Like for a minute, it looked like there was going to be this shootout, and it was this terrifically fun game. And then the last 3 quarters, the game really bogs down. Turnovers increased. As I mentioned, both teams had a lot of shots kind of spin out of the rim. It's just one of those nights where the offenses were tough, had tough sledding for both teams. Reed, I want to go big picture here. This segment is going to be brought to you by the Queen Casino. You can catch all the sports action at the Queen Casino's DraftKings Sportsbook Bar and 1717 Kitchen and Cocktails. With top-notch screens and live betting, it's the ultimate spot to watch your favorite teams and enjoy a cold brew or signature cocktail. The Queen Casino is the only land-based casino in Baton Rouge, and it's your go-to for game day or any day. Visit today and elevate your sports watching experience. But I kind of, we talked about this in Monday's podcast, how LSU's 20-0. They're ranked number 5 in the country. We talk about DraftKings at Queen Casino. They were being disrespected a little bit in the betting market, where they're only like the 9th choice, to win the national title, and the odds are pretty far behind the top 8, where South Carolina's leading the way. You've also got UCLA and UConn, and even in the SEC, Texas and Oklahoma, I think, were above LSU. So a little bit of that disrespect. I kind of think tonight, I mentioned this earlier, I think tonight maybe gives you a little more reason to believe, like, LSU can play with South Carolina. In South Carolina, they can probably play with anybody.
And South Carolina is the best team in the country. I'm not quite sure if they're going to be ranked number 1 in the country in the next AP poll. It's kind of tough. I'll have to make that tough decision myself. I don't know if I'll see myself putting South Carolina above UCLA when the two teams had a head-to-head matchup. And like someone said in the comments earlier, that UCLA did win, and they won by 20 or so points. So I think South Carolina, since then, that was 2 months ago. Since then, they've won every game pretty decisively with the toughest schedule in the country. It's not just that UCLA game. They played Duke, they played TCU, they played both Texas and Oklahoma and LSU. They've played a lot of tough games, and they've looked really commanding all those games. So anything that might have come out of that UCLA game about how they're not as strong as they usually are, or they might not be in for as dominant of a season as they usually are, I think that can be put to bed now. They're really good, and like you mentioned, LSU went toe-to-toe with them for most of the game. So that should give you confidence. But again, I think if you're an LSU fan, you just got to be frustrated by just what's it going to take for them to get over this hump. What's it going to take for finally get a win. Kim Mulkey did say, like Akeem mentioned there, I didn't quite get a glance at that, but she said she's not into moral victories. Yeah. Kim Mulkey said that. She's not into moral victories, but it is important for LSU to keep perspective, given that what really matters is that they're playing their best basketball come March, and that's what really can set them up for what they really want to achieve, which is not regular season wins over South Carolina. It's postseason wins, and they might meet in the postseason again. You never know, but I think Kim Mulkey really tried to keep things in perspective tonight after the game.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think 2 years ago they lost this same game by 24 points at Colonial Life Arena, and then went on to win the national title. And no one remembers that 24 point. I think it was on Super Bowl Sunday. Come to think of it, no one remembers that. No one's going to remember this if LSU goes and beats South Carolina in March or April and wins another national title. So, you want to take lessons from this game. The lesson I'm taking is that I think, and I actually just went to DraftKings Sportsbook and looked, and LSU has gone from 20-1 to 17-1 to win the national title. So after this game, they did get a little bit more respect in that betting market. And, you do kind of see that. So, Reed, I know you've got to get to writing, but let's wrap this up. I mean, what are your final thoughts here at LSU? Now, as we kind of spin this forward, this is a tough turnaround. They got to play in less than 48 hours against Texas A&M.
A&M just beat Kentucky. Kentucky's a good team. They're a ranked team. They're probably going to finish in the top half of the league. A&M, they have a lot of size, a lot of physicality. I think they're a good defensive team. LSU, ordinarily, if the snow hadn't forced the SEC to reschedule this game, they would have had 2 days off. Instead, they have one. I doubt they'll practice tomorrow. Once they get back, they'll probably take it easy and then go straight into that game on Sunday. That's not going to be easy. Typically in these spots, you are kind of vulnerable to, letdowns, maybe coming off this big emotional high versus South Carolina. Now you got to get back and play an SEC team again. So don't be surprised if LSU kind of has to fight through that one on Sunday. We'll see how it goes, obviously, but this was a big test for them, and it was a big was a big battle. I think we learned a lot about them finally, and I think we'll find out even more on Sunday to see how they respond.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the rest of LSU's SEC schedule, because again, the regular season only matters so much. Kim Mulkey has made it very clear what she's interested in is getting a top 4 seed so that they can play their first 2 NCAA tournament games at home. That's all she can. If it's a 3 seed or a 1 seed or a 4 seed, I mean, she's not too concerned about that part of it. They have 3 kind of back-to-back stretches, two games back-to-back, 3 of them that are going to be their tests. And it starts on Sunday, A&M, and then they're at home against Oklahoma on Thursday. So those are 2 possibly ranked teams coming in to the PMAC that they'll play back-to-back. Then later, February 9th and February 16th, they got a home game against Tennessee, who they beat at the buzzer in Knoxville, and then they're at Texas the following Saturday. And then late in the season, late February, of at Kentucky and at Alabama, another couple of top 25 teams back-to-back. So those are sort of your 3 pairs of games that are really going to test this team and tell us a lot as we go forward into March.
I think they have room for a couple more losses, though, if they want to keep that tournament seed. It's a double-edged sword, the tougher SEC schedule. You play tougher games, so you're more likely to pick up losses, but those losses don't hurt you as much as they would ordinarily because the teams are tougher, So I think we're still in really good position to get that top 4 tournament seed. I think that's what really matters to Kim Mulkey and LSU. I think they're still in really good shape here, and that's really what matters to them. So we'll see how they do in those games. It should be interesting.
All right, he's Reed Darcy. He is live from Colonial Life Arena in South Carolina. Reed, we'll let you get back to writing.
All right, thank y'all. Y'all have a good one.
All right, appreciate everybody hanging out with us tonight, and our thanks to Reed for joining us from Columbia. We're going to wrap things up here on the LSU Sports Insider Show. Again, number 2 South Carolina beats number 5 LSU 66-56 in a game that LSU led by a point after the first quarter, then trailed by 3 at halftime. It was 33-30. And then they were down by, what were they down by? I guess 10 points at the end of the third quarter. And the fourth quarter was an even 15-15. So lost by 10 in Columbia, South Carolina. We will be back with more LSU Insider podcasts for you next week. Hopefully you have one on Monday. Talk some women's basketball, also some LSU men's basketball, slip in some gymnastics. If there's any off-season football news, we'll be all over that. And we are also, of course, gearing up toward Tiger baseball season. So hope you all can join us. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. Appreciate you all hanging out. Appreciate Reed joining us. And, of course, our sponsors led by Waste Pro. Appreciate them as well. This has been the LSU Sports Insider postgame show, and we will see you next time. Thanks for watching.